Hey everybody, welcome to the National Signing Day podcast. I'm your host, Coach Martin. Today, this episode is going to be for the parents. Now, if you're an athlete, doesn't mean you need to turn it off. You could still listen. You're going to still get some gold. But this is for parents. So we're going to talk about scams in recruitment. Now, you're probably thinking, great, I know a lot of maybe products that I've used and maybe they're on this list. No. So the scams that we're going to be talking about aren't necessarily a product, but we're going to get into this in a second. So if you pull up the definition of what a scam is, it's a dishonest scheme or it's a fraud. And sometimes our thoughts can be frauds as well. That can literally be a scam that holds us back or holds our kid back from actually getting recruited. So we're going to talk about 3 scams right now that can stop your athlete from getting recruited, okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about is number 1. So the scam is, what got you here is not going to get you there. So if you have an athlete, right, I know right now we're getting ready to come up to, signing day is right around the corner. So if you have an athlete that's a senior and he hasn't been recruited, man, it's going to be very difficult. But let's say you have an athlete that's a junior and hasn't been recruited as well. It's not like you just have a year left, right? You're going to have to do something different that's going to allow you to get recruited, because so far what you've done has gotten you to this point, and I'm guessing that your athlete has not gotten recruited. So by telling ourselves that, like, hey, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and eventually, Jimmy or Donna will get recruited. No, you got to do something different. If you want a different result, you got to do different work. And in this case, you're going to have to do something different to get your kid recruited. It's going to have to be full steam ahead, like basketball, the full court press. So you're going to have to 10x whatever it is that your kid's doing. You're going to have to 10x it, right? Number two fraud is someone else or something else is going to get my kid recruited. So that's an interesting take, right? So I want to kind of talk about this for a second, right? A lot of times we think that if I get fill in the blank, or if I buy fill in the blank, that thing's going to get my kid recruited. And yes, there's things out there that can help your kid get recruited, but it doesn't necessarily work that way. It's a little bit deeper, and I'm going to get into this right now. There's times, and I won't mention a name, right? But there's times where people say, well, Coach, what do you think about this particular company? And I'll be like, there's probably good and bad. And they're like, well, I think they're a scam. Well, why do you think they're a scam? Well, because I used them for 6 months and my kid didn't get recruited. Well, I know athletes that actually have gotten recruited using that piece, so it actually does work. But what did their kid do that got them recruited, and what was different than what your kid did and not get recruited, right? The chances are they used it differently, right? So if you're paying for something or a service or a product, or you're paying somebody to help you, right? It's not just like, hey, I don't have to do anything and my kid's going to get recruited. No, your kid still has to do the work. If your kid's not committed to doing the things necessary to get recruited, then it doesn't matter what you pay for. It's not going to work. So you're going to obviously make sure that your kid's serious about getting recruited, that your kid's doing the work. The things you purchase help your kid get recruited, but they don't get your kid recruited for you. Does that make sense? So if you're paying somebody, let's say, as example, a recruiting company, and you have a dedicated recruiter, they're going to help your kid. They may make some phone calls. They may do some extra stuff, but ultimately your kid's still got to be the one that, seals the deal. So you got to make sure that your kid does the work. And the third thing I want to talk about as far as a fraud is your recruitment is impossible, or it would be impossible because of the transfer portal. I hear that all the time. So people will say, well, Coach, why even try now? It's harder for athletes to get recruited. We have a transfer portal. We have JUCO now doing another year eligibility, right? So it's harder for athletes to get recruited, or at least high school athletes. And to a point, you're right. I get it. It takes more work. It's definitely harder. But let's think about this for a minute. If a college gives Johnny a scholarship, and Johnny's playing in college, and then Johnny transfers to another school, and that school now is one less scholarship that would be given out, Well, the school that Johnny left still has one more scholarship. So you understand what I'm saying? So even though there's one less scholarship where Johnny's going, there's one more where Johnny left. So there's still opportunity. Kids are still getting recruited, right? But don't put that fraud in your mind that, hey, why bother? Because, it's just too hard because of transfer portal. Transfer portal's making it a little bit more difficult, 100%. And college coaches, when you really think about it, a lot of them don't have to do really a lot of work anymore, right? So instead of doing all the recruiting and going through all that, they just now go in the transfer portal. They can find somebody that's a seasoned, college athlete that's used to a college program, and you can just plug and play. So you should never allow that to discourage you. It just means that, one, you're going to have to work a little bit harder. And two, it's probably going to discourage a lot of other people. So your athlete probably has less competition because a lot of your athletes' competition is being discouraged. So I look at it like it's always a good thing. It doesn't matter. In life, you're always going to have challenges. We're always going to have things that are going to come up that we have to learn how to navigate around. It's okay. There's always a way to figure it out. And recruitment is no different. So if you want your kids' recruitment to be successful, you got to remove the scams that are in between the ears, the things that we tell ourselves on a daily basis. It's just not true. There's a school and a scholarship for your athlete. You just have to figure out how to do it. Now, if you need one-on-one help, make sure you visit us on our website at nationalsigningdaypodcast.com. We'd be happy to be able to have a one-on-one call with you, find out what's going on, what you're doing, what's not working, and point you in the right direction. So be sure to visit us, be sure to subscribe, and be sure to share, because here's the deal. You're going to have people in your sphere that need to hear what we talked about today. So until next time, I am Coach Martin, and this is the National Signing Day Podcast, and I'm out.